And so now we come to our third and final question. How does your faith put its belief regarding the environment into action?
Okay. The Baha'is have been involved internationally, locally, nationally, in different countries all over the world on the issue of environment. In fact, they were present, I think they were one of the few religions that was present at the World Summit in Brazil for the Environmental Summit. And there is the Office of Public Affairs has done many things and has put out many statements. In fact, in 2011, they put out a statement called the Climate Ethics Statement, and basically the idea with which included a lot of other endorsements. The idea was that our nation's moral obligations to address climate change. So they put out a statement on that, and they've also put out other documents. They're also involved in an organization which might be of interest to this panel here. It's called IPL, which is the Interfaith Power and Light. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. And basically the idea is to educate people of different faiths on what we can do to help, to help the planet, in terms of sustainability and different ideas internationally around the world. Also, locally, as I said before, Baha'is believe that everything's connected. It's not segregated. Like our environment is not separated from the issues of education or the issues of extremes of wealth and poverty or the equality of men and women or any of these tenets. They're all interconnected. And I think Baha'is are working on all of these ideas and more all over the world. And as they do that, there is a shift in mentality. If you work, for example, just even educating children, then those children will become thinkers, and they too will be helpers, and they will be able to help, rectify our earth and our ills and problems, and especially if the education includes a spiritual component, where there is a spiritual obligation to recognize the sacredness of our earth. I myself am a teacher, so my heart is very much in education, and I recognize the importance of that, and even the equality of men and women. If we treat all women correctly, then we're going to make sure that all women have good places to live, are able to eat, have the same possibilities. Everything is connected, and so and there's a list of different programs and organizations that the Baha'is are involved in terms of environmental issues. But I also believe, my own personal understanding is that even just all of the different causes are interconnected, and they are all connected to our environment and the issues we have with the environment.
I'm glad you mentioned about the holy water, the friends in the holy water. Does anybody know how you get holy water? You boil the hell out of it. Not that the Buddhists believe in hell. The Buddhist precepts are a teaching on how to live our lives in harmony with the totality of the universe. And when we look at our precepts, we normally think of them in terms of people. So, normally. Indeed, most of the moral and ethical teachings of the great religions address relationships among people. But these precepts do not exclusively pertain to the human realm. They are talking about the whole universe, and we need to see them from that perspective if we are to benefit from what they have to offer and begin healing the rift between ourselves and the universe. And so he talks about the first 3 pure precepts that we have in Buddhism, which are in all religions, and we say, not creating evil, practicing good, and actualizing good for others are the first 3 precepts. And these are a definition of harmony in an inherently perfect universe, a universe that is totally interpenetrated, codependent, and mutually arising. But the question is, how do we accomplish that perfection? The 10 grave precepts point that out. The first grave precept is to affirm life and do not kill. What does it mean to kill the environment? It's the worst kind of killing. We are just disseminating many species. There is no way that these life forms can ever return to the earth. The vacuum their absence creates cannot be filled in any other way. And such a vacuum affects everything else in the ecosystem. No matter how infinitesimally small it is, we are losing species by the thousands every year, the last of their kind on the face of this great earth. And in the book, he tells a story about some beavers and dams, and he talks about that how when they tried to chase away the beavers, all kinds of things happened to the environment, and then they made a law against killing all the beavers in town, in Mount Tremper, New York. And then the beavers came back, and then the beavers ate his tree, his favorite tree that was given to him as a gift by his students. It was a big weeping willow tree. And then finally, several years went by, and the beavers ran out of trees, and so they left. But what happened after they left was then the dam broke and chaos occurred, but they got lots more trees. So there's such a union of animals and the environment that, every time the humans try to obstruct what the animals know intuitively about the environment, we screw it up. So he wrote this poem about his mountain, and he says, the process of realization is basically a process of clearing away the extra and getting to that place that's the heart, light, and spirit of each one of us. What you see at that point is the freedom that was always there, the nature that was always there, just wanting to come to the surface, just wanting to express itself. And so he wrote this little poem. The ancient wolf caves on Tremper Mountain have long been empty. Yet wolf howls echo in the river valley with each winter's full moon. Some say they are the sounds of the wind on the cliffs, or coy dogs. Others say, clearly this is the sound of the mountain wolf. Have you heard them? And then he wrote, if you want to hear them, you have to listen with the eye and see with the ear. Only then will you really understand. Only then will you really hear the teachings of the insentient. Only then will you hear the sermon of rock and water, the teachings of mountains and rivers. And that is what I wish for each of you.
So how does my faith put its belief into action? The Catholic Climate Covenant has recommended 5 actions. And the first is to pray and reflect on the duty to care for God's creation and protect the poor and the vulnerable. The second is to learn about and educate others on the causes and moral dimensions of climate change. 3, assess how we, as individuals and in our families and parishes and other affiliations, contribute to climate change by our own energy, use, consumption, and waste. 4 is to act to change our choices and behaviors to reduce the ways which contribute to climate change. And lastly, to advocate for principles and priorities in climate change discussions and decisions, especially as they impact the poor. On a more personal level, as a member of the Sinsinawa, Wisconsin Dominican community, our Care of Creation Committee is a standing committee, and its role is to help inform members of related climate issues. And this committee was responsible for the approving of a corporate stance by our corporation, by our community recently, calling for a moratorium on natural gas fracking and frack sand mining. And our corporate stances are a public statement or action agreed upon by the vowed members of our community. Each of us, sisters and associates, are committed to support all the corporate stances, and we add voice and support to those who are addressing the devastating impact of the fracking on the earth, particularly in the Midwest. But also as a member of the Dominican, we practice the four ways of life. One, community, study, prayer, and service. But as part of study, we participate in regular study sessions which inform and help to develop contemplative understanding of the many facets of environmental spirituality. And we are challenged to be part of impacting this fundamental change of societal attitudes. And we recognize that we not only have to call upon the intellectual and political leaders of our world, of our country, of our community, but the spiritual resources of the world community together. That we are a body, the interfaith body, the spiritual leaders, that are probably the ones who are going to make this happen. And as an aside for this, there's an opportunity for us to help with the consciousness raising of what climate change is doing to our local South Florida community. The UU of Fellowship of Boca Raton has had a wonderful Florida Earth Festival. This coming Sunday in Delray Beach, they will be marking chalk marks on 4 areas that are the first to be impacted by the rising sea level. And they need volunteers to help to mark this out, to help raise the awareness of the public of this pending result of climate change. You can go to www.floridaearthfestival.com for all the specifics, and you are encouraged as a way to participate in this.
I believe that one of the more fundamental, basic beliefs or mindsets of the indigenous is service and community. That you help your brothers and your sisters and your family no matter what. That if someone needs some land, you let them borrow some land. If someone needs housing, you give them shelter. And inside of that too is a teaching of buffalo, and the native Lakotas, they use buffalo in the north of their sacred directions, of the 4 sacred directions, and buffalo represents service, and within that story it says that buffalo would turn and face the arrows of the tribe because they knew that every single part of them would be used for the good of the whole. Their tendons, their skin, their meat, every single part. And within that is the teaching that all of our lives are just as buffalo, that we live, we face the arrows, we face the lessons, we face all of our life so that we can turn around and teach others, give to others from that which we go through, from that which we experience in our human flesh. And from my experience within the indigenous traditions, I've seen over and over and over again devotion, absolute devotion to perpetuating the ideas, the essence and the love of the earth and sustaining our environment, and as well assisting and supporting our brothers and sisters that are near and dear to us, as well as the animals. There's so much. There's an example I do want to give too about the South American people who were told 500 years ago to come down from the mountains and come and spread their teachings and traditions to us in the North Americas and East. And it's an exciting time because that's really happening. On a personal note, tomorrow I'm actually hosting people of the Q'ero tribe who are here from Peru for a very short time, doing just that, passing on those traditions and those lineages. They're one of the last Incan shamans left on this earth that hold that knowledge of harmony and balance. And it's like if you're on the Indian Trail and you step 1 foot off, you're done. Your entire life depends on that harmony and that balance and that integrity that you walk this path of the earth with. And as well as that is when you are in that service in such a way, and you're giving to your brothers and your sisters and the community that you find yourself in, and everyone starts to come to this place of having their basic needs met, right? Food, shelter, basic well-being. Then at that point you can move on to that greater conversation of really truly being of service, of starting organizations and foundations, and being in that place of being able to give more because you're receiving more and you're well taken care of. So beyond anything, it's teaching that balance, and not only teaching that balance, but acting in that balance, of taking those steps forth of saying, I know I'm here for a reason, to teach this, to walk this, to be a demonstration of what it is to be in a good way. Be that your actions, your prayers, your interactions with your family, all your relations. Again, aho mitakuyasin, thank you to all my relations, I am one.
Of course, Emily speaks for traditions that really understood perhaps better than anyone how to live in harmony with the planet. And it's really indicative of the mindset of people who came to this planet from Europe, that they considered them to be savages and considered their culture to be inferior and sought fit to destroy them physically and culturally, and thought that their whole culture should be replaced, which is really just so horrific, especially when you realize that it was done with Bible in hand. And so today, it's wonderful that we have someone here who is reflecting a tradition which, if it was well understood and practiced, is the way to save this planet. And so we, in the Jewish faith, have something similar to what Emily was talking about. Jews are prohibited from hunting for pleasure. If you take the life of an animal, it's considered to be sacred. To do that as a form of sport or enjoyment was considered sick and perverted. And so we too understand that animal life is sacred. That's the whole basis for the rules of kashrut, of keeping kosher. It was designed to try to spare the animal suffering, because taking a life was considered to be a necessity. As far as what are Jews doing today we understand that taking the life of an animal is not a necessity to eat. And therefore there are many Jewish vegetarians. There are Jewish vegetarians organizations that are urging not only Jews but all people to stop eating meat as a way not only of protecting our health and saving the lives of animals, but protecting the planet. Because one of the worst things that we're doing to the planet is feeding massive amounts of grain to animals and then killing the animals and getting back a fraction in return. The other thing that we're doing that is absolutely fatal to the planet is overpopulation. And many people don't talk about it, but Jewish people do. I guess we wear a tallis because it has fringes on it. And we Jews are used to being on the fringe of society, especially when it's going in a direction we find to be deleterious. Or if there's a dictator who thinks that they're going to trample on the rights of people. That's why dictators always go after Jewish people first, because they know we're going to speak up. We know we're not going to permit it. And we have spoken up about environmental damage and also overpopulation, which was one of the biggest contributors to the destruction of the planet. And we view the Torah with common sense. God said, according to the Torah, to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. You know how they created man and woman. God created Adam. Then he said, I can do a heck of a lot better than that. And then he created Eve. But he said, be fruitful and multiply. So people say, you see, God's telling us we should have a lot of kids. What they forget is there were only 2 people on the entire planet at the time. They feel that God has no common sense. If you were looking down now and it was able to speak to us, he'd say, okay, you've done it already. Okay, you can stop now and slow down the process. Try some family planning here. So it's very necessary to do that. We believe that it is a moral obligation to protect the planet, and speaking about it is not sufficient. We Jews don't believe that you're given a reward for what you believe. What you believe doesn't matter. We base morality on deeds, not creeds. And when to be a Jew is to do. And when Moses, right before the Jews crossed the Red Sea, Moses was praying to God in the Torah. He's praying to God for salvation. And God says, stop praying and get moving. And that's what we need to do today. Stop praying, stop speaking, and do something. And do something, as Rabbi Heschel said, do something subversive. He said when he marched with Martin Luther King, I feel like I'm praying with my feet. Do something subversive. Go against what your society is doing when it's going the wrong way and try to correct it.
So Friends have a long history of putting their faith into action, and that has gotten us into trouble too along the way. We do hold dear to the spiritual basis for our work. So we are always coming back to our silent worship. We're coming back to check what we call leadings. You know, is this that I feel like I'm being asked to do? Is this really right and true? And we do that in community, we do that in worship, and then our actions grow out of that. On a local basis, Friends have been very involved from the beginning on recycling and just all the myriad of activities that we can do on an individual basis. We participate, we'll have a table at the Earth Day Festival. We look at our meeting house and how can we be environmentally friendly with what we're doing. So we're constantly, as individuals and as a community, working at that level. Then we have no leader among Friends. We never have. But we do have kind of an organization. And at a state and regional level, people here in this meeting belong to Southeastern Yearly Meeting. That's all of Florida, part of South Carolina, and coastal Georgia. And we have just come to approval of having a friend among us. We have not found this friend yet, but this is going to be a field secretary for Earth Care to amplify the work that we're already doing on a state level and regional level. We have an Earth Care committee, so we have looked to amplify the work that we are doing. And on a national level, we have Quaker Earth Care Witness. It's a North American organization, but it does do work around the world. They work on education among Friends. They have mini grants for projects that are environmentally friendly, so they provide matching grants. But most notably, we have 2 levels of badges at the United Nations in the civil society, and I think that work is so crucial. And we meet with there was mention about the summits that are being held for the environmental summits. We are now allowed to have a voice in civil society in wording in documents that we can put forward. So we're able now to do this. And we work on the global commons, and we work with the global south, the people who have been marginalized. And, you know, we have here tonight one of those members with that works with the UN, Jack, back in the corner. And there's a lot of gratitude that we have in Quaker Earth Care Witness and beyond for the work that they're doing there. We also, on a national level, we have a Quaker lobby. It's called Friends Committee on National Legislation. Quite a few years ago now, Quaker Earth Care Witness lobbied our lobby to take up earth care. And Friends Committee on National Legislation, thank you, sorry, in Washington has done that. So our voice is raised in Washington. They've been there for a long time. It's a very respected organization, and they quietly do a lot of background work. And worldwide, we have the FWCC, the Friends World Committee on Consultation. There was a paper put out that was just beautiful called the Kabarak Call in Kenya in 2012. And what that embodies is the coming together of many different Quaker groups with one voice to speak for the environment, to speak for the marginalized and for eco-justice. So we do raise our voices, we do work, and as widely and as locally as we can.
Let me just put in a plug for the Quakers. As the founder of the Palm Beach County Environmental Coalition, which was led by a Rabbi Rouser and which was very subversive, the Quakers opened up their home to us for years. We met here at no charge, and they definitely practice what many religions only preach.
Thank you all for your comments and answering these questions. And now we'd like to open questions from the floor. Does anyone have a specific question?
Do you want to take the mic to them?
No, that's okay. Go ahead. Just stand up. And
Okay. I'm so pleased to have heard you mention fracking. I wonder how many here have ever come close to the horrendous situation that fracking has caused. How many have seen it up close?
Not up close.
That's good. And every time the oil industry puts on that beautiful commercial of showing fracking and the beautiful color of it and going down into the stone and on, it's a bunch of hooey. And it's a horrendous lie to the whole country. I've seen it up close, the terrible pollution to the environment, of water, of land, forest, the whole thing. It's a terrible lie by a tremendous amount of money. The other thing is there's been no mention of the Everglades here, and here our president has just visited it, yesterday?
Today.
Or today, Earth Day, yeah. And I think our sugar industry right next door to us hasn't been mentioned. They stall a lot of stuff. So I hope we can get into some discussion on those issues.
Sir, could I respond to that gentleman? Thanks for bringing that up. I served in the Florida legislature for one term, and I saw personally how the legislature is bought and sold by special interests, including the sugar industry. And after campaigning loud and clear against them, a representative from the sugar industry said, "Representative Silver, you seem very one-sided. Don't you agree that there's two sides to every question?" I said, "Absolutely. There's the right side, and there's your side. And you, sir, are treating the Everglades like your private sewer, and the people of Florida don't appreciate it. And that's one reason why I'm not in the legislature right now. They raised a ton of money to take me out. But they bought and sold many, many politicians and contribute to both political parties. And we need to understand that. As far as the Everglades go, it is a treasure, and it's buffered by the Ag Reserve. Tomorrow, the County Commission will be hearing from people who want to plunder and exploit the Ag Reserve and pave it over, and part of what they want to see is the Browardization of Palm Beach County. And tomorrow morning, I will be there, and others, to tell them to leave the agricultural reserve agricultural. It's a buffer to the Everglades, and it should not be destroyed. And I wrote a Declaration of Fossil Fuel Independence, which I've issued and circulated, and so it'll be on our congregation's website. If I could I'll just read a little part of it. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one species to dissolve the bonds that have connected it with fossil fuels, and to assume among all living beings on earth a more responsible and harmonious station, a decent respect for the beauty and majesty of all life forms requires that we declare the reasons which impel this separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all species are fashioned exquisitely, that they have evolved through natural selection with awe-inspiring adaptations, which render them spectacularly suited for survival. And then it goes on. It says that at the very end, we therefore solemnly declare our goal to be free and independent of fossil fuels by the year 2020, and to use 2020 foresight to protect and respect our home planet. The state of Israel is now working on becoming independent of fossil fuels. And this is a very, very urgent issue. It's also an issue that could bring conservatives and liberals together, because conservatives are very interested in the economy. And if we could liberate ourselves from fossil fuels, we wouldn't have to be sending huge amounts of wealth to countries that also destabilize us because they sponsor terrorism. It's something that conservatives and liberals should work together on. It would be an issue to bring people together. Independence from fossil fuels.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ted.
One of the questions that I was hoping that we would get to this evening was what we can do as individuals. Of course, as groups, as religions, we have things that we can do as a group. Sometimes it's difficult to get group consensus or to get group motion to move in a certain direction. We have much more control over what we do individually. And I'm thinking about things as simple as recycling, thinking about things like rooftop solar, where we can, begin to make a difference in the amount of fossil fuel that we use. Thinking about things like driving hybrid cars or electric cars that again wean us off of that. Planting as many trees as possible on our own property, to freshen the air, and a lot of other things that we individually can do and that we can do as faith communities to encourage our membership to take those actions. So it would be great if we could walk away this evening with some kind of an action plan.
Absolutely. All those things you mentioned individually, such as recycling, planting trees, maybe beach cleanups, things such as that, and also organizing those within your own personal circle of friends. And in that too is individually, as I was talking about that power of prayer or intention, is to really make those times where you're doing those acts of service a space of sacred connection for yourself, and to to focus on that just as much as the act in itself. And from what I've found, and also with working in my community, is you find that passion. Maybe it is solar panels, maybe it is recycling, maybe it's actually getting your hands dirty and gardening or something such as that. But whatever that passion is for you, go do that. And know that the other things are being taken care of, that there is enough for everyone to go around, and we don't have to take on more as one single individual than we need to, because sometimes it feels so overwhelming. It's like there's so much needs to be done. How can I really be significant influence in this shift? And really truly in honoring your passion, honoring your heart of what calls to you, and in those moments really making that a sacred time for yourself and for this earth and for your family.
I wanted to add to what you're saying. There are many wonderful groups and organizations that are doing lots of very diverse things for sustainable development. And in addition to doing things on an individual level, to participate on a group level and add your energy to a group level, I think opens up it magnifies the impact by being part of the group. And I would certainly encourage people to connect with other groups. Yeah, and then there are some other people over here.
There are many congregations that are very large, but they're not doing things for the planet. If there are congregations out there of your persuasion that are helping the planet, join them and work with them. I coach basketball. This is one of the few practices that I've missed because I did not want to miss this panel. They're practicing right now. And I told all the kids in the beginning of the year, I don't want to see anyone bringing a water bottle. I don't want to see it. Bring a thermos. I told them when you go to the store, do not take a bag. Don't take a plastic bag or a paper bag. Bring a cloth bag. If you want to help, vote for people who are going to do the right thing instead of sitting out, and get involved. Get involved in electing people who are going to do the right thing, because we're voting for people who are doing the wrong thing, and the good people are pretty much sitting out. You could also eat less meat and help the planet.